Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're going to take a look at Venus rapidly approaching the south node of the moon. This is not an aspect to sleep on because anytime a planet crosses the south node of the moon right within the range of eclipse season, especially when an eclipse has formed right around that node, you will often see very powerful expressions of the planetary symbolism appearing. And so we're going to take a look at that today, and I'm going to give you 5 things to watch for given the unique pairing of Ketu, the Indian astrological version of the South Node, which we'll focus on today, and Venus in the sign of Virgo. So that's our agenda for today. Before we get into it, as always, remember to like and subscribe. It really does help our channel to grow tremendously, especially if you click that little notification bell icon so that you get reminders when we go live or if new episodes drop. That really helps too. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on our website, nightlightastrology.com. Tonight, I am giving a talk on Mercury. Go to the events page on the website and click on live talks. You will see pairing the planets, Mercury's many faces. In this talk this evening, I'm going to be telling you about Mercury as a first philosophical principle, what's called an archetype, which is the idea that all of the planets are basically different features or functions of reality in the ancient philosophical perspective of Hellenistic astrology. Once you understand what each planet represents within the kind of grand scheme of things, it becomes easier to understand how each planet pairs with every other one. In this series, we're going to talk specifically about Mercury's nature in an in-depth philosophical way and then pair it with every other planet. This will be great for you if you want to understand Mercury in your own chart, but also Mercury's pairings with other planets. If you're an astrologer reading for other people, this series is going to be awesome. If you can't attend the live webinar when you sign up tonight, you get the recording afterward with all of our talks. And check out all the other talks coming up too. I'm going to be pairing Venus with the other planets. We're going to be studying Venus as a first philosophical principle in November. All right. The other thing to remind you of, our retreat to Mexico next June. Click on Immersive Retreats. Early bird discount lasts until the beginning of July, so be sure to look at that. And then the first year course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. There's an informational video tagged on at the end of today's content that will tell you everything you need to know about our upcoming year 1 program. I'm very excited to start with a new group of students in November on the 8th. If you scroll down on this page, you'll see everything the class includes. You'll also see the same video right here that you can watch on your own time if you want. At the bottom, you'll see the early bird rates are good until October 24th. So you will have time to save on the cost of the course with those options all the way up until October 24th. Need-based tuition assistance is also available. So if you're someone who'd like to take the program, but you need a little help to make that happen, there's a sliding scale there that allows people who are on a limited or fixed budget or income, or maybe exchange rates are high because you're in another country. Please feel free to use that. We want to make sure that studying a sacred topic like astrology is financially accessible for people. We don't want people living outside of their means to take a course that is meant to enrich you spiritually. So on that note, let's turn our attention now to the real-time clock. And I want to focus on Venus and the South Node today because it is a major astrological transit that it could kind of slip under the radar for a few reasons. And I'll tell you what they are. We'll talk about Venus and the South Node. I'll show you what to watch for. Before I get into that, I want to mention that today we are coming off from Thursday, September 25th. We're just coming off from Mars's square to Pluto. Over the course of the past 2 days, I covered this aspect on the channel through horoscopes and an archetypal breakdown of the Mars-Pluto pairing. That was Tuesday and Wednesday. I even covered a little bit of it on Monday, along with some of the sun transits that we had earlier in the week. So if you missed that and you're still feeling it or need a little insight, be sure to watch the last 2 days of content on the channel for coverage on that topic. It's separating, but it lasts until Sunday. So we're very much still in the range of the Mars-Pluto square, but I feel like I had dedicated enough time to it already. So we're on to new things. All right, here's what I am looking at. This is Venus co-present in the sign of Virgo with the south node of the moon. Now, you might be asking why that is of significance. Like, why would we focus on that? Well, anytime a planet crosses the south node, it's something worth talking about. The pairing is always meaningful, but it takes on a little extra meaning when a pairing of a planet with one of the nodes happens right around an eclipse that just took place at that node. So if we look back to September 21st, we can see a solar eclipse, the very last degree of Virgo that was forming around that 17-degree Virgo south node. It's a partial solar eclipse. So what we're coming up on today, Thursday, September 25th, is now about a 10-degree range that Venus is coming into, co-present in the same sign with the south node. What that means is that over the next week or two, we are going to see the gradual empowerment of these two things coming together. We're going to see it grow in its power symbolically. So let's map this out. We get to within about 3 degrees, which is a range that I consider to be really important. I'll back this up. Whoops, I'm just going to be dealing with this. All right, so here's about 3 degrees of separation. That's starting next Tuesday, September 30th. If we take this forward just a little bit, we'll see that it is Thursday, October 2nd, and Friday, October 3rd, the end the following week, that we have the actual crossing of Venus and the South Node. Then we're going to see that Venus cross the eclipse point, and that eclipse point is going to be around October 12th and 13th. So I think that Venus's transition across that South Node and the degree of the eclipse in the next couple of weeks is pretty significant. Let's back this up again to today. So here we have Thursday, September 25th. We're within 10 degrees. By the end of next week is the point. Will Thursday, October 2nd, and to Friday, October 3rd, so just about a week from right now, the actual conjunction will occur. And then let's give it one more week beyond that. We get to the following Friday, and Venus is coming around the degree of the eclipse. That gives us 2 weeks within which that Venus placement is pretty loud and is participating in the recent symbolism of the eclipse. Say more about that. If we back up to the day of the eclipse on September 21st, what I want to remind you of is that at the time of the eclipse, notice that Venus, co-present in the sign of Virgo, was squaring the planet Uranus. And we said just prior to the eclipse on this channel that Venus-Uranus dynamic was, in a way, coming right on the heels, or coming right before the eclipse. The eclipse was coming right off from it, which means that we could think about this eclipse cycle coming up, the entirety of at least the next lunar cycle, if not the next few, which is how eclipses typically work, as including the symbolism of Venus and Uranus. That means disruptions and changes for Venusian things will play a strong role in the unfolding of the meaning of the eclipse. All right, so with that in mind, given that we now have maybe about 2 weeks of Venus starting to deliver some of those, some of that promise, what might that mean? That's what we're going to look at today. So with Venus and the South Node, there are always things to watch for, but I want to first remind you of some of the meanings of Ketu in Indian astrology. This is important. Let me bring up my notes here. So just a reminder, because I've covered Ketu as the South Node of the Moon in Indian astrology many times before, but these are just a few of the things that Ketu represents. And I covered this, by the way, in the lead up to the solar eclipse in Virgo a few times. So you could always go back and look at some of that eclipse coverage for more in-depth thoughts on the South Node eclipse with the, the solar eclipse with the South Node. One thing that Ketu represents is spirituality and moksha. So the South Node of the Moon is more generally involved in things that are otherworldly and spiritual and involve liberation from or detachment from material things in Indian astrology. I tend to follow the Indian meaning of the nodes in my practice. The ancient Hellenistic view is very similar, a little different, but the significations of Ketu include things like detachment from the world, detachment from material things, renunciation of material things, the impulse or desire for moksha or liberation from the material world through, say, enlightenment. It tends to draw the mind and psyche inward, away from material things, toward things like meditation, mysticism, psychology, reflection, transcendence. This is also why the South Node of the Moon tends to be about karmic lessons that are crystallizing in our life through the process of detachment or disidentification from material things. The South Node, commonly in modern evolutionary astrology, associated with the processing of karmic material that translates into wisdom gained from, experiences that we've had in say past lives through the natal chart position of the South Node. The second thing that, broadly speaking, the South Node therefore represents is past life karma. It is strongly tied, the South Node in Indian astrology, to samskaras, which are impressions from previous lifetimes, like grooves in a record track, familiar patterns, maybe even karmic debts of some kind. It often will reveal an area of life where there is unfinished karma that has to play out, leading to both challenges and opportunities for wisdom and growth. The third thing that Ketu can quite frequently represent is losses or diminishment of material things. So Ketu tends to sever or cut attachments to material things. It brings disconnections, endings, feelings of emptiness, dissatisfaction, and it generally turns us inward or otherworldly in focus, so we can look for something beyond material gains, but that can often come at the cost of losing things materially. Mysticism and hidden knowledge would be another one where Ketu is often associated with things like intuition, occult sciences, astrology, mantras, yoga, tantra, esoteric wisdom. It is associated with psychic sensitivity, insights, mystical experiences, and so forth. And then finally, as the headless body of the demon that was killed by Vishnu, by Mohini Murti in the mythology of Rahu and Ketu, Ketu can represent a sort of directionless, wandering, escapism, illusion, uncertainty. It has an almost Neptunian feel to it that can be intoxicated and not seeing things clearly, or even escapist in nature, and sometimes sort of deceptive or cloaked in illusions. Yeah, so these are just some things to keep in mind about Ketu. And when we pair Ketu with Venus, the goddess of relationships, love, pleasure, sensuality, women, friendship, desire, sex, beauty, art, what do we get? This is what we really, I think, can benefit from right now, is taking a look at this combination, because, again, two reasons. The main reason to focus on this is that we're going across the south node of the moon, and Venus was strongly configured at the time of the eclipse that just happened with that south node. And so the movement of Venus across that node is going to bring a strong Venusian signature, which was also present at the time of the eclipse, to bear on our life experience right now. The second reason to pay close attention to it is that right after it crosses the south node, it'll head toward the degree of the eclipse. And again, as we saw at the outset of the eclipse, Venus was squaring Uranus. You can tell there's going to be a real Venusian dimension to the way that this plays out. All right, well, number one would be detachment from Venusian pleasures. So because Venus signifies sensuality and pleasure in the material world, and because Ketu tends to sever worldly attachments together, they can create renunciation, sobriety, and any kind of detachment or letting go of, let's call them, unhealthy Venusian pleasures. It might be the call to renounce the material world and become a monk. It could be the desire to cut back on how much you're eating. It could be the desire to cut back on how much you're spending. Or it could be that there's karma that's fruiting and you're having to experience some consequences because you're in debt because you spent too much on things that probably didn't matter that much, or you're not feeling good and you're really not liking how you look because you've been having a hard time controlling your appetites or impulses in your body, or you've not been taking good care of your health. The point is that there's a real moment of crystallizing insight around things that are physical and sensual, and how they should be connected in a healthy manner to some transcendental focus in life. So consider that. Number two would be unconventional love and relationships. It's interesting that when these two planets come together in Indian astrology, as I was looking through some delineations and textbooks that I have, one of the things that recurred was an emphasis on unusual or eccentric, non-traditional sex and love or marriage or relationship experiences. Almost as though the emphasis on otherworldliness lends itself to Venus in ways that are almost like artistically and sexually experimental. I thought it was funny how much that seemed to resemble Venus-Uranus, by the way. The other thing that it can bring would be sort of erratic things in relationships, a sudden union or separation, a love affair or divorce, things that happen that bring some kind of resolution into play karmically in a relationship. Number three would be spiritualization of aesthetics. So Venus with Ketu can almost like elevate a artistic or aesthetic taste or sensibility or value towards something mystical, spiritual, or religious. It's as though art, music, beauty, poetry, love, sex becomes a pathway to spirituality or transcendence. This is the kind of thing where, you realize the value of making love or having a romantic connection with someone who's spiritual like you are. Or it can be about, hey, let's try tantra in our relationship, some breath work as we're connecting physically. The point is that the aesthetic, the sensual, the Venusian can be fluidly connected to things that are sort of otherworldly, mystical, religious, or spiritual. And we can also start saying, I need my values or my tastes or my style physically to mirror something aesthetically. Now, the shallow version of this would be like, oh my God, yoga is making a big difference in my life. I'm going to go to Lululemon and just look like I'm in yoga clothes 24/7 to like try to spiritualize my style and look like a cool, hip, sexy yoga person. I'm not trying to be judgmental, but you get what I'm saying, where you have to be careful that you're not trying to make something look spiritual only on a superficial level. Number 4 would be past life karma in relationships. Ketu can signify karmic debt from past lives. And so when Venus and the South Node get together, it's just the possibility that anything Venusian is set to resolve itself karmically. I said this in a different way just a minute ago, but when there's this distinct feeling that someone you're talking to, someone you've had an encounter with, the way something's playing out in a relationship has a fated or destined feeling behind it, and it's as though a karmic knot is being untied, or maybe one you're getting tangled up in one. But past life karma in relationships, friendships with women, sisters, daughters, can be very profound with Venus, who does represent women of really any kind, like a sister, a friend, a lover, a daughter, the feminine in general, any like female figure, so to speak, could be Venusian in a literal way. So past life karma in any kind of relationship with a Venusian figure. And then finally would be ambiguity around wealth and luxury. There could come a point where certain things that have been attractive are just suddenly losing their glitter. It's like, oh, it's just not that attractive anymore. Venus is associated with wealth, comfort, and luxury. And with the South Node, it could be that there's a diminishment of the importance of some of those things taking place. On the other hand, there may be fluctuations where there's sudden gains or losses, and there's a sense of things being rich or opulent, but do I even care if they are? Or it's like someone providing the most amazing meal and just being like, I'm not even sure if I'm hungry. Or someone providing you with the most amazing experience of shopping or something. Like, we're going to go to this most amazing boutique, and you're just like, I'm not sure if I'm in the mood to buy anything. Ultimately, wealth, luxury, beauty, pleasure may suddenly be diminished in its importance or value for one reason or another. I'm reminded of the fact that many people in, I guess, the world at this point are taking Ozempic. And one of the things that does for people who have addictive pathways, it's said to diminish the pleasure value of things that might be addictive, like food. And this is part of how it apparently helps people to eat less food. I'm not certainly not advocating for people to go take Ozempic. I'm just sort of commenting on it as an archetypal expression of Venus in the South Node. I need to curb my appetite. I'm going to take a drug that limits some pathway in my brain that can experience pleasure around food, and hence I lose weight. Do you know what I mean? Some of that might be healthy. Maybe it's not healthy. I have no idea. But anyway, that's the story there. So anyway, ambiguity with wealth, pleasure, luxury. Is this good? Is this enjoyable? Isn't it? How much should I like this? How much shouldn't I like it? So a lot of lessons coming around for Venus right now. And again, I feel like some of the time, what happens is we underestimate peripheral things happening at the time of an eclipse. And we don't track the subsequent developments of those planets that were really loud at the time of an eclipse directly after the eclipse. This is a great one that you could easily miss And so I just felt like we got to spend a minute on it here today. All right, that is it. That's our talk for today. After I sign off, I hope that you will check out this upcoming year one program. It starts again in November. Absolutely the best thing that I have to offer as an astrologer are my courses. I have poured my heart and soul into creating, at this point now, five different programs, 4 core programs in natal astrology that are meant to give people lifelong skills, whether it's just for you and your own practice as a hobby astrologer, or if it's practicing for other people. These programs are meant to take you very, very deeply into the language so that you understand the why behind everything, which grants you a lot of intuitive capacity as an astrologer that people who are told, go do this, but never told why, where did it all come from, don't typically have. So I hope that you'll check it out. Hope you'll come study with us. Remember, there's need-based tuition. So if you need a little help to make the program happen, be sure to take advantage of that. It's a big part of our mission at Nightlight to make astrology accessible for everybody. All right, that's it. Have a great day, everyone. Bye. Hey, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. This is our first-year course in Hellenistic astrology, and it begins again this November. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the course, the format of the course, and how to register. So let's go ahead and get into it. What is this course about? Well, if you are not familiar, ancient Hellenistic astrology is the earliest and original form of horoscopic astrology. All of the subsequent forms and schools of astrology that have existed over thousands of years come from these philosophical and theoretical roots. And so what you're doing when you study Hellenistic astrology is you're going back to understand the why behind absolutely everything. Why were there ever such a thing as houses and signs in the first place? How were the planets ever assigned to rule various portions of the zodiac in the first place? How do you use the categories of essential dignity, and why were they ever created in the first place? If you're someone like me, you like to know the why behind things, because once you understand the why, then you know how to use things more intuitively. So really the point of Hellenistic astrology, in my opinion, is not so much about going back and becoming a traditional astrologer or just being traditional for the sake of being traditional, as much as it is about grasping the roots of the entire system and paradigm. When you understand those roots, you have more intuition and understanding, which allow for you to be much more artful and fluid in the way that you speak the language of astrology. We call this class Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic because while it is about going back to understand the philosophical, theoretical, technical roots of the tradition, it's also about fluidly bridging those things with modern astrology and all of its most unique contributions. For example, modern astrology has given us so much psychological depth and personal depth. And so in a modern astrological setting, you're going to get the ability to explore your own character, your own psychology, and you're going to be able to utilize astrology for a process of healing and personal transformation. But when you pair that with ancient astrology, and it's almost like predictive karmic analytics, you really have a full toolkit to work with. And so that's also a great mission of ours at Nightlight, is to bridge ancient and modern forms, which is why we call the program Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. So that's just a little kind of overview of the program. If you want to know more about the specifics of the curriculum and of the syllabus, what I encourage you to do is go over to nightlightastrology.com, click on the courses page, go to the first year course, scroll down, and you'll see this over 12 months you'll learn about. And here you're going to see more of a detailed breakdown of the curriculum itself. I can promise you that if you've studied astrology in modern context, but you've never gone back to the ancient roots, while some of these topics may look familiar to you and you go, oh, I've already learned about that, unless you've studied them from the Hellenistic perspective, I guarantee that you are not going to be familiar with this content. Hellenistic astrology is mind-blowingly new and interesting for most people. And if you've never studied it, again, don't assume that anything on this list is something you're going to be familiar with. In that way, the program is really ideal for a variety of different people, and I'll say more about that in a second. So what is the format of the course? Let's go to that next. Scroll down and you're going to see that the course includes 30 online webinars that I lead throughout the year. Over the course of a year together, I have 30 classes that are broken into different units of material. In between those classes, we have breakout study sessions with your course director and 2 TAs. They're going to lead you through Q&A sessions and tutoring sessions to make sure that you have a lot of support in between major units of study. In addition, we also have an interactive group forum discussion where you can ask questions year-round and get an answer within a business day in the student forum, where a lot of people also connect and build community. Lots of people in that forum also develop like little meetup groups outside of class. That's very common in all of our programs. It's a very community-loving, warm space where anyone's also welcome. Throughout the course, you're also going to find that for every lesson, if you're just there as a hobby student, you can just listen to the webinars. They're all recorded for you. So if you can't make the live webinars, everything is housed on the website as recordings. I'd say about 40 or 50% of our students are going to be following along at their own pace, whereas the other half might be attending the live webinars. But it's really kind of, you know, if you can attend a few and then 1 week you got to be gone, the recordings are always there. You have lifetime access to everything in the course, so it's not a big deal. For every lesson as well, if you're someone who wants to go really, really deep, maybe you have the intention to practice professionally, this course is set up with an optional certification exam at the end from our school, from our program. So you can, you know, if you want to build that resume and develop the credentials from our programs, you can do that, but you also, it's optional, so you don't have to. And outside of every lesson, we have recommended reading. We have supplemental bonus content, all of which is optional, but it's there for people who might want a lot more, whereas some people will take the webinars themselves and that'll be plenty. So it's really flexible in that way. Also, this is one program within 4 years of curriculum that are meant to go together. And so most people who come through our first year program will end up taking our second year program where we develop forecasting and prediction and transit tracking techniques. Our third year program, which is aimed at counseling and psychology. So psychological counseling skills is our third year program. And then the Oracle Within, which is our exploration of the philosophical, spiritual roots of the divinatory oracular tradition of astrology. So there's a lot of material there. We also have another 1 year program in horary astrology for some people who want to add that predictive tool to their toolkit. So there's just a lot of material at Nightlight that this class is actually just one part of, which can be taken standalone, or for some people, they get into it, they're going to love it. You're going to hang out with us for 3 or 4 years worth of content. This program is ideal for a number of different types of students of astrology. I'll say that for starters. So let's see here. I'll stop sharing this. So we have there's a profile of the typical students who come through our courses. One is going to be people who just want a very guided introduction to ancient astrology because you've never had it before. Maybe you're only familiar with modern, and you want that guided, structured approach to learning traditional for the first time. Also, people who are brand new to astrology in general, there's no better place to start than at the roots of the ancient foundations. So whether you're a total beginner or just a beginner to Hellenistic, this is a great place to start. If you are someone who's been around astrology for a long time, but you've never had a guided, structured approach to Hellenistic astrology, again, this is a great place to start. I promise you, Hellenistic is very different than what you're familiar with, and you're going to need a guided and structured approach at some point in time. I also think for people who are looking for a lineage, which means not just a bunch of information, but a practitioner-specific based approach where you get to see a practitioner work with clients. You get to hear how a practitioner has prioritized different techniques and why. You're going to get a structured, spiritually grounded focus at Nightlight as well, where if you're looking for someone who practices astrology, but also values grounded everyday spiritual practice, that's Nightlight. If you want a community that's been in the industry for a long time now, this is our 16th year of teaching programs and guiding students through trainings. So all of those things, if they matter to you, this is a great place to study. It's a warm community atmosphere. It's spiritually grounded. It's focused. It's academically rigorous. It's going to provide you the appropriate preparation for practicing professionally, especially if you go through all of our programs. But also for those who are just curious and love astrology for your own personal interests, this is going to be a great place for you to learn and grow and thrive and feel like you have a lot of support around you in the curriculum, the teachers, the community, as you're developing, what might just be a personal interest or spiritual hobby. So that is who it's ideal for. Finally, how you register. You go over to the website. I'm going to take you back there. And it's at the bottom of the first year page. You're going to find that the early bird rate is in effect until October 24th. You can save significantly off the cost of the course when you use the early bird rate, where you can pay in full, or use an early bird installment rate plan. Both are going to save you off significantly off the cost of the course. But also at Nightlight, it has always been our mission to make sure that astrological education is accessible for everyone. So please, if you are someone who would love to take this course, but maybe you can only afford a small amount of tuition per month, use the tuition assistance. It is there. All you got to do is plot, you fill out the little form, you tell us your situation. If you're on a fixed income, if you're on a limited income, if you're part-time, if you're in between jobs, if you don't make a lot and you're on that fixed budget, we understand. We don't want people to hurt themselves trying to study something that is spiritual that we feel should be very accessible for everybody. So if you're someone who could use a little help to make this program happen, for whatever reason, maybe you're a single parent, or you're on disability, or you're retired, or you're on a fixed income, whatever the case is, use that tuition assistance. Also, people in other countries who have extreme, exchange rates. We get it. So just use the tuition assistance, and we'll be glad to make sure that the price point is accessible. For us, as a spiritual topic, we're a business at the end of the day, but we believe that this is a spiritual topic. And so accessibility has been a part of our model for 16 years now. We've never not had one of our training programs with affordable sliding scale-based prices for people who need it. So please take advantage of that. It's all there for you. I hope to see you in classes soon. And if you have any questions about the program whatsoever, direct them to us at info@nightlightastrology.com. And I hope to see you all coming up here in November. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.